The modern Olympic movement began in 1896 in Athens, and every game since has grown to be more elaborate and on a grander scale. With the United States set to host their 9th Games in 2028 in Los Angeles, there has been a growing movement to rescind the bid for the Summer Games due to a list of major concerns. Groups like No Olympics LA have actively demanded that the City Council hear their demands and take the Games out of LA. Their reasoning stems from past failures and negative effects from past games in the US and other cities around the world. However, LA28 has prided itself on being different. These would be the first Olympic Games to not hurt their host city. How true are these statements? Is No Olympics movement valid? Should we be worried about increased displacement and militarism? Can LA28 be the games that change the future of global sports and mega events and their impact on their communities? Or is it just destined to be another failure? Leading up to the 2010 Games in Vancouver, homeless and street-involved youth began to feel the pressure from police to conform to this image that the city wanted for the Olympic Games. The city's security budget of $175 million grew to roughly $185 million by the time the Games were held. During a focus group, a local reported, "People are getting arrested left and right." Jacqueline Keeley's "You're Making Our City Look Bad" Olympic Security, Neoliberal Organization, and Homeless Youth dives into how the city of Vancouver subtly encouraged displacement through police action. To present Vancouver on a global stage, the city worked to create an image of clean civility. This is a type of sterilization that wouldn't be new for LA either. When the city hosted the Games in 1984, the police also pushed the homeless population out by sending them detox centers or forcing them to relocate while also destroying their own belongings at the same time. In February 1984, 6 months before the Games, LA City Council members put a law on their books that banned sleeping on bus benches. In both LA and Vancouver, this was meant to target those with needs that didn't align with the desired image both cities were trying to create and ignored and pushed out those who did not fit. In 2016, LA reported the largest homeless population in the nation, with nearly 13,000 people. Federal housing officials blame the rise on the lack of affordable housing. How will the city treat its current homeless population this time around? LA28 is intended to be the first no new builds games. This means no new infrastructure would be built for the Olympic Games. While the IOC now pushes for sustainability among its host cities, no new builds is a new concept and a way to address the financial burden that comes with hosting the Olympic Games. The Olympic Village in Paris 24 is going to be new and supposedly will become a mixed-use neighborhood following their games. At first glance, it might seem like LA's approach is a good one. If there are no new builds, lands and homes won't be replaced with Olympic infrastructure. Instead, new hotels are being built in the city to meet the demands of tourists. A proposed 160-room hotel project in Hollywood would demolish 40 existing rent-stabilized apartments. As well, Airbnb rentals are popping up all over the city, taking away space for locals. Fear of extreme gentrification will follow with constant builds of new hotels and more Airbnbs. When prices rise in cities that have usually been home to those of a lower income, displacement is always going to follow. With hosting the Olympics comes the welcoming of thousands of visitors. Into the host city. When host cities make preparations for their games, their list is going to include additional equipment for their extra police force. However, this additional equipment is going just beyond new uniforms. In its preparation for the 1984 Games, LAPD required a slew of military-grade equipment, including specialized armor to protect helicopters from gunfire, flashbang grenades, ballistic helmets, and armored emergency rescue vehicles, and high-powered binoculars. Jenna Chandler reported on this growth for Curb Los Angeles, a former Vox media outlet. She also detailed that following the Games, LAPD used an armored vehicle that they required during the Olympics to blast into a local home. The converted military V-100 had been used during the Vietnam War and was now outfitted with a 14-foot battering ram. Then Police Chief Daryl Gates said the raid was about stopping people from dealing dope, but only a small amount of marijuana was found in that raid. During the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City, Black Hawk helicopters and thousands of troops patrolled the area. While this might have been a part of the fallout from 9/11, it's hard to imagine that the Games would bring such a dangerous crowd that the US military had to be on some of the highest alert in the city. It is already questionable why hosting the Olympic calls for such intense policing, but what happens when the Games end? Stories like the LAPD using a tank for a raid do. Local police departments don't return this equipment, and if it isn't rented or borrowed, This means when police come back to their day-to-day happenings, they now have access to new technology that isn't necessary for the crimes happening on a day-to-day basis in their cities. The ease at which all promises of LA28 could fall over would only need a light breeze to tip it. No Olympics has consistently pointed out all of the times the city council has dropped the ball on promised updates and transparency with the public. The demands of No Olympic are more than valid. The games and what they bring to cities is cause for genuine concern for the citizens of LA. The place of mega events in today's world is losing its glamour. At this point in time, it doesn't seem like the LA28 committee is going to find the perfect answer to make sure their locals aren't subject to displacement and militarism. Currently, the city of LA is getting ready to pass the Games Agreement, which will define how all of LA hosts the Games. No Olympics was quick to highlight many of the broken promises from City Council that they did not agree to protect guarantees of street vendor rights, limits to mass expansion of policing and surveillance, and a commitment to not displace or sweep unhoused citizens. These are just 3 among many of the promises many had hoped to see LA keep. So what does this mean for all of global sports? Should the Olympics cease to exist in a modern day? Or do we allow the system to hide from change and stay as it is? As a lover of sports, I've always enjoyed how the Olympics showcase so many amazing athletes and sports that they play, but it is naive to ignore the glaring issues. The current games do not work for anyone anymore. The way megasports are treated causes more harm than good, but these athletes still deserve to play and they get to show their sport to the entire world. So how do we find the balance? The current makeup and beliefs of the IOC is holding back any potential and any change. At this rate, the IOC is going to run out of willing host cities before they accept that real change must be made to the games.